Welcome to Diakonia, a call to service. Diakonia is the Greek word for service and the root word for deacon. I'm Deacon Jim Norman, Vicar for Deacons with the Archdiocese of Chicago. Delighted to be here with you today to discuss the myths, common myths related to deacons. And I'm going to let these fine gentlemen introduce themselves and share with you their date of ordination. I was ordained in 2013. I serve currently at Our Lady of Sorrows Basilica on the west side of Chicago. And to my right, Deacon Dave Brinsick.
Hello, everyone. I was ordained in 1999, and I'm at Holy Guardian Angels Parish, which is a merger of St. Barbara and St. Louis de Marillac in Brookfield, LaGrange Park.
And Deacon Dave Brinsick is the Associate Director for the Office of the Diaconate. And Deacon Richard Hudzik, our Director of Ongoing Formation and past Vicar for Deacons.
And clearly the oldest member of this panel, because I was ordained a year before Dave, 1998. And I served in Westchester at Mary Mother of Divine Grace Parish.
So let's just discuss. These are myths about deacons that are held by the faithful, sometimes by priests, and sometimes by deacons themselves. So I have 8 that I've identified. We may stumble across some others along the way. The first, the deacons get paid. Richard, how do you? So you're wealthy now. We said 1990.
1998. I've been collecting the paycheck for decades. But before we go on, there's the scene. We're talking about myths.
Myths.
There's a line from the Muppets movie where they're in the bar and somebody says, "That's a myth. That's a myth. That's a myth," and the waitress comes over and says, "Yes." Anyway. Our deacons paid. I'm sorry for that. No, deacons are not paid. It's not a paid position. There is an instance, or such things as sacramental stipends. There's a love offering, if you'd want to call it that. There's a schedule for doing a baptism, no matter how many children. There's a $50 check. It's a similar smallish stipend for a wedding or a quinceañera or a committal service. But so it's, keep your day job, because they're in increments of $50 here and $50 there. So that's simply to defray the expense of gas or liturgical supplies or something. So no, it's we don't enter into this life because of the pay. There are deacons, such as the 3 of us sitting here, who, not as deacons, and it helps that we're deacons, but we also have jobs. We get a W-2 at the end of the year from the Archdiocese for the work that we do for the Archdiocese in administering the diaconate office. Jim, you're full-time, and Dave and I are now part-time in that. But that's not the number of deacons who work for the church, and there's a salary attendant to that, but that's because they're employees. The existence, the fact of being a deacon, is not a paid position.
But I'll never forget, I was at a deacon formation night, and we were describing a deacon, and a gentleman who was there inquiring about the diaconate said, "Well, what kind of pay does a deacon get?" And we said, "There is no pay." He goes, "You're kidding. You do all this for free?" Yes, you're doing it out of love of service, to the church and to God and God's people. But as far as, like Richard said, keep your day job, because there is no extra money involved.
Yeah. Well, and so typically deacons are working or have worked a career elsewhere.
Yes.
And had the call from the Holy Spirit to commit themselves to service in the church and pursue this role of deacon. Richard, you made a point too, and I was in that role prior to this. I was the director of vicariate operations. So that was a paid role within the church, but I was a deacon at my parish, Our Lady of Sorrows Basilica. Right. So very different and distinct. I wasn't director of vicariate operations because I was a deacon. It was because of my previous background in the for-profit world. Yeah. So just to make that distinction. So if you're considering the diaconate, it won't be for the pay.
Correct.
Or the accolades or the glory.
The eternal rewards, however, are
Yes.
priceless.
Are priceless.
So we are told, or
Yes.
we hope.
That's right.
Okay. Deacons always wear collars. And maybe Dave, we'll start with you.
Well, three of us aren't wearing collars. You know, in the Archdiocese of Chicago, and different dioceses throughout the country have different, guidelines. But the suggested guidelines, in Chicago are, if you are in situations like ministering at a hospital, visiting the sick, if you are visiting the jail, where you really need to distinguish that you are a member of the clergy, then it's suggested to you to wear the Roman collar. But if you are just within the parish itself, volunteering at the parish, whether you're teaching a class or working in the soup kitchen, where it doesn't really necessary to distinguish that you're a member of the clergy, then wearing a collar really isn't necessary.
Indeed, it's suspect, if I may be so bold. Is that the tension is to, if I'm wearing the collar because it makes me feel important, or it separates me, it elevates me, I'm part of the hierarchy, well then I've missed the boat. So it's our policy book, available at deacons.archchicago.org, if you ever have trouble sleeping. But the way it's phrased for the Chicago deacons is that where it's for the good of the people, as Dave, as you were pointing out, where it's useful for the people to know that there is a member of the clergy present, then yes, you may, it's not obligatory, but you may wear the Roman collar. But other than that, if you're wearing the collar because you can get a better seat at the restaurant, we need to have a talk. You know, so in humility, if it's for the good, then yeah.
Yeah. I had been thinking about that recently. It's almost like the collar it fits to some degree to me to the scripture where Jesus says, take the seat at the back and then be brought to the front, so that if they see you as unique by your service, like, oh, there's something different about this man in this service, the way he's interacting with us, that would be good. If they are put off or see you for your collar, not your actions, that's something different.
It's kind of amusing that there are various deacon listservs and discussion boards online, the National Association of Deacon Directors or something. People can throw in a question and talk about, and it's inevitable annually. What's your diocese say about wearing of Roman collars? And as we said at the outset, I've been, not that I'm the oldest guy, but I've been hearing this conversation since 1998. Let's just, I don't know if it's something a deacon has to think through, but just get over yourself. Serve. If the collar helps, then go for it. But otherwise, don't put on airs.
Yeah. Myth number 3. The primary role of a deacon is to serve at the Mass. That's the deacon's role.
It's certainly important. We talk about the tria munera, to wax Latinate, the 3 offices, the 3 ministries of the deacon: word, altar, and charity. So 1/3 of what we do, or of the 3, service liturgically is what we do. So yes, but it's not all that we do. And to address this as a misconception or a myth, I don't know, it kind of calls up in question, is that all that the deacon is doing? And if so, then you might ask, well, what food, what raw material, what life experience, what ministerial experience does he have to bring to bear on that service at the altar, particularly if he's preaching? If you don't know the people because you're only on the altar, then you're missing out on something. It also may reflect the fact that, and this may call for grace on the part of the deacon with the parishioners, is that it may be that the parishioner, his only experience of this man, this deacon, is he's the guy in the altar who reads the gospel. And so that may betoken a poverty of that parishioner's experience in the life of the parish. So that's again, going to Mass is a beautiful thing, but that might be the 100% of what that person's involvement is. So we need to be gracious to that and maybe invite them to something more. So is it the only thing? By no means. Hopefully it's not. It ought not be.
You made a point there, and I just wanted to underscore that always with the myth, there's some level of truth, but it needs greater clarification. And that's really what we're trying to do here, right? We try to say these are myths. There's some truth there, but try to get to what is at the core and heart of who a deacon is and what a deacon does.
It's like a heresy is not 100% wrong. A heresy has an element of the truth that it overemphasizes, and it misses the totality.
Right.
So.
Yeah, serving at Mass is the most visible aspect of being a deacon, but the deacon is also called to service of the Word. So that might involve a Bible study of some sort, leading retreats. Deacon is called to service to charity, so that that opens up all kinds of possibilities for a deacon to serve, bringing communion to the sick, visiting the inmates in jail or in prison, food pantries, soup kitchens. That's where I think the role of a deacon is really defined.
I think as you said that too, I mean, this notion that I've heard the concept like ruin your witness, right? So if a deacon is, as you said, Richard, preaching at a Mass about service and love, but he's not seen doing that within the parish, that would be ruining the witness in some way. There's no, and me serving through word or service gives me some grace when I'm at the altar assisting or preaching. Oh, I've seen that. I've seen that in the deacon. So I will take that word as more credible, more grounded, because when I called, he came to visit when my mom was sick at the church and bring communion. Or was so faithful in serving at the food pantry, or so faithful at serving at our clothing drive, or is always committed to this, always has a kind word. So when he says that or breaks open the Word of God, I've seen that in him.
Also, deacons are also other liturgical ministries. Deacons can baptize, so we have performed baptisms in the parish. We can witness marriages. Many deacons preside at wake services. So, you can really have quinceañeras. You really have an opportunity to interact and touch many lives of people outside of Mass.
And if you think about it, how unique some of the unique, maybe that's overstating the wrong word, but the instances of baptisms and weddings and wake services are instances where a lot of the non-parishioners are going to be there, or maybe somebody who hasn't been to church and
non-Catholics.
So it's a beautiful opportunity for evangelization, for demonstrating that yes, there is a heart in the church and that there is love offered for you. It's an opportunity to display the best of the church, and be tuned into that.
So you're describing those as points of evangelization
right.
and the points of kind of outreach and welcome.
Right, right. Yeah.
And so the deacon in that way is a herald and a symbol, icon of the faith.
Right, right.
The next one I have is, deacons are glorified altar boys.
I've actually had that said to me once by the priest I was assisting. But,
okay. Tell us more.
He had other issues, but maybe you're just picking on me. So it's You do that, and it's akin to the notion of the deacon is the guy who reads the gospel. It's unfamiliarity with our roles. I don't know if there's something that the deacon might be contributing to that misperception or not. I don't know about that, but I'll put maybe this myth in the lap of the observer who is unfamiliar with what we're doing, or maybe it's our inability or our failure to communicate what a deacon is. So it could be that, as we've said from time to time, it could be that the only time anybody ever sees me is up on the altar.
Okay. And sometimes when the altar server doesn't show,
right.
we are
Yeah.
the altar server in
true,
addition
true.
to the deacon.
In my day, in the old days, we would be stricken dead if we didn't show up for our altar serving appointment. Anyway.
Oh, as a kid.
In the old days, in the 60s.
Yeah.
Maybe if we walk through then the deacon's roles within the Mass, because there's a reason the deacon reads the gospel. There's a reason the deacon, takes on the prayers of the faithful.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason the deacon calls the faithful to kind of recognize their sins, right, as a member of that community. There's a reason the call for peace, and even the dismissal. So should we walk through those a little bit? And just say, so why is the deacon reading the gospel? What is that supposed to symbolize within the liturgy and for those present?
Well, clearly, it's a recollection for us of the words of our own ordination. Receive the book of the Gospels, whose herald you have become. And so, in the mind of the Church and our theology, it is the deacon's ministry to be the herald, to be the announcer, the proclaimer of the gospel. And in a sense, you could say that we're carrying out that function, but it's to give the gospel prominence, that a person specially tasked to do this is going to be proclaiming the gospel. I think there's an element of that. There is this notion of the deacon arising out of the lay community, and we're neither, in a sense, neither fish nor fowl. We live the lay life, but yet we are ordained to, as clergy. So we're both and so it's coming out of the well of the people that we're proclaiming the good news. So I'd put it in that category.
And maybe, Dave, perspective of prayers of the faithful, the deacon reading the prayers of the faithful?
Well, as Richard just mentioned, I think you're raising up the concerns of the people. Prayers we pray for the church, we pray for the world. I always like to include, if there's some of the events of the past week, there's the tsunami here, or the earthquake here, or if our nation is struggling with a particular issue, you're raising those prayers and concerns to God, and you're representing the people. That's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah, I think that's right, and and what the phrase you used about betraying your message, or
ruining your witness.
Ruining your witness, so that when we're mentioning the dead in the parish of the past week, if we actually know those people, and it's known that we know these people, I think there's an intensity to that prayer offering. That if it's known that if we're giving voice to the prayers of the community rather than just something that's handed to us, I think it elevates that enunciation, that articulation of the people's needs.
I think it's also, too, if you've been bringing communion to this person who's been sick, and you've developed a relationship, or if you have consoled the family after the person has died with bereavement, it brings those prayers to a different level for you know, for you as a minister.
And I think
walk
that's
with them.
and I think that's evidence. I mean, we can be
Yeah.
very rational and logical, and well, saying the words doesn't change it. But I would disagree. I think that people can tell by your presence and your intonation that you know what you're saying, that these words mean something to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is communicated to the people.
And then at the conclusion of the Mass, I was thinking about this as we say, go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life.
Deacon's got the best line of the Mass, arguably. Yes, it's the dismissal, that the Mass isn't ended, the work isn't finished, but it's just beginning. And so we're sending people forth. And so that's the one I usually use, go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life. And once in a while I might preach on that, because they're pretty words, they're fancy words, but unless we dwell on them, they just roll right over us. But
I was just thinking there's also too something significant about the deacon saying that, given what we were discussing earlier, that I'm saying that to you, but I'm going with you to walk with you. I'm doing it myself, but I'm going to help you walk in that direction. Closer to the words we've heard, the words I proclaimed, and live in congruence with those words in a world that's difficult, challenging, and sometimes dark.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, another role, I mean, it's not some deacons do it every week, but I think the majority of us, it's more an occasional basis, is the opportunity to preach at Mass. And, you have to have your pastor's permission, and you have to be properly trained in that. You just don't go up and wing it. But that's also a role that we can have at Mass, and it's really it's a joy, it's a challenge, it can be nerve-wracking sometimes. It requires lots of prayer.
It's a tremendous privilege.
It's a tremendous privilege.
It is.
Who gave you authority to do this? You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if it's taken on in the ways that you both described, with this is tremendous privilege. There's a weight that comes with that means that it requires some
Ongoing formation.
And preparation.
Preparation, extensive preparation, right? Because this is the word that they're going to hear and carry with them, hopefully, that's going to have them think and have them act differently in the workplace, within their homes, within every aspect of their life.
And, we can have a separate show just on this, but why should I care, sitting in the pew, why should I care about the words I've heard proclaimed in the gospel and these other readings? How does it apply to my life? That's a huge challenge for the person delivering that homily, to make it relevant to people.
Okay. So certainly more than just an altar boy.
Oh, yeah.
There's much work to be done. There's much thought behind the roles that a deacon has within the Mass, and there's a great responsibility and accountability that come from each and every one of those roles within the Mass, and certainly built up and shored up and confirmed by the other aspects of the diaconal ministry. I'm going to go to all deacons are married. Is that all deacons married?
No. Majority are, but that was our first, for many of us, that was our first vocation, was to our wife. Permanent deacons can be married and have children and have regular jobs. But there are a number of men who were single, and they decided they were being called to the diaconate, and they take a vow of celibacy. The men who are single, when they are ordained, take a vow of celibacy, that they will not marry after their ordination. A deacon who's married takes a vow that they will, if their wife would die, that they can't and won't remarry. That's part of the package.
Okay. I was going to ask, the wife and our wives were involved in some way. Number one, gave permission, their support and permission to pursue the diaconate, walked with us through the 4 years of formation. Mm-hmm. Are they then one of the myths? Can we call them deaconesses?
Can, if you want to be wrong. Go right ahead. No, they're not deaconesses. They're women who are married to a deacon. Catholic Church women are not eligible for Sacrament of Holy Orders. Certainly, it's there's conversation about need that remain forever. So, with respect to the permanent diaconate, conversations and study groups and such in the Vatican. I think they're on their third. I think the last one that recently concluded has not yet released their findings. So no, in other Christian denominations, yeah, there are deaconesses, but in the Catholic world, no.
No. And I guess that doesn't, all our wives said perhaps more spiritually grounded than some of us. Mm-hmm. Certainly our source of support and inspiration and encouragement and help us perform our roles as deacons in our communities to the degree that we do. In such a way, that source of strength and support comes from certainly our wives. Mm-hmm. Many of our wives have roles within the church, various ministries, leading ministries, and do a phenomenal job in that. They're vital to us in our ministry, vital to our parish communities, so that doesn't undermine them or their contribution at all.
No.
Right, they have many gifts and talents that they bring, and to the parish and to the church, they play many different roles in the parish, and sometimes they're underutilized, which is a shame, but they can bring so much regarding ministry.
Yeah, I mean, we see that even in our community, the wives playing such a critical and vital role, bringing great insights and perspectives to the community overall, inspiring us to even do more in our roles as deacons.
And silently as well, in terms of at least within the confines of the home, that if we're doing this deaconing whilst alienating our wife because she's somehow secondary, well, you're a lousy deacon, just to be blunt. We have to rely on her, our wives, for guidance and support and permission. She's on our ministry agreements with the parish. She is a signatory. She holds veto power over that agreement that we might have with the pastor in the parish.
And there are some wives too who choose not to get involved in parish work or in ministry. I'll stay home and I'm on the home front raising the kids and taking care of the house. That might be their choice. And as Richard said, they're the silent support at home that we need as deacons to know that we might be off doing our church thing, but the house and the kids aren't going to be neglected. That our wives are there to support us and help. Many wives often take care of what's going on at home.
I want to go to the another myth, and I don't know where the source of this one comes from, but the myth: a deacon is what a deacon does. Is that, I don't know if that's because culturally, when you ask someone what they do, who they are, they tell you what they do.
Right.
Right. So is that just get simply transferred over to being a deacon? And we say, well, I'm a deacon, I am what I do. It's what I do in the food pantry, what I do in service. It's what I do proclaiming the word. It's what I do at the Mass. And if I'm not able to do one of those things, I'm no longer a deacon. If I'm not able to perform a part of that threefold ministry, I'm no longer a deacon. Is that true?
Well, I think it's a cultural response, as you suggest. And hi, I'm Richard. I do X, Y, and Z. We introduce ourselves in terms of our job functions, and I think that's an error. The deacons, being part of this culture, can fall victim to. I like to phrase it that it's not what a deacon does, but who a deacon is. We're not so many tasks. Comparison is what do you call the person, a female who gives birth, who feeds, who serves as limo driver, who organizes education and clothing? Is that a surrogate mother? Is that a mother? Is a mother defined by the tasks that she does? Other than giving birth, those other things can be done by somebody else. So we miss the mark when we reduce what we do and who we are to what we do. Just as we would reduce the vocation of motherhood as a collection of so many discrete acts. Our mothers are more than that. Our fathers are more than that. And so too a deacon is more, hopefully, than what he does. It's more difficult, surely, to articulate the who rather than just simply, as a shorthand, express who I am with what I do. And that's, it's a convenient way of talking, but it misses the mark.
Okay. Is then how the deacon and the faith community, like who, we talk about sometimes the notion of that mark was upon your soul at ordination. You are always a deacon, and maybe brings us to kind of the last myth that I had noted, and we'll check for any others before we close. But the notion, once I retire as a deacon, because I'm maybe physically no longer able, I'm no longer a deacon.
Yeah, that's
Can I give this role back at some point? Is that possible?
No.
Or in this role?
No.
You are a deacon,
Right.
and some of our older, deacons who are struggling, or senior deacons who are struggling with, okay, if I choose to retire, I'm no longer able to be up at the altar. I can't make the steps anymore, or I'm shaking and I don't want to spill the chalice. Maybe it's time to step back. Okay, that those things happen. But you are still a deacon, regardless. That, like you said, there's that mark on your soul that, and it's part of who you are.
And the truth of that is that we hear when we attend, say, an elderly deacon's funeral, we'll hear perhaps a eulogy or the priest presider, the homilist, talking about, even though Deacon Joe was old and frail and no longer able to do the things he used to do, he was still a prayer presence in the church. He still met with people. He still talked with people, and the grace of his presence continued to serve the parish. And that's what we do is when we're no longer physically able to do certain things. So yeah, we're still on for being a deacon, because it's not what we do, it's who we are. And hopefully, maybe even there's a flowering at that time of relieved from the pressure of doing, of organizing, of leading, instructing. Maybe it's a time for a fruitful flowering of the graces that we've been too busy to nurture, and we can share those blessings with the parish at that time.
We have deacons in their 90s who are still serving.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actively serving. Their health, they've been able to keep their health, and they're still mentally sharp, and there are guys in the Archdiocese who are still serving into their 90s.
Yeah. And there are examples as well of men in their 90s, perhaps a bit younger, who maybe led the food pantry, but now they're mentoring others and bringing them into those roles, right? They can't lift the boxes, they can't be there every week, 3 days a week, but they're a call away. or men who can't be on the altar, but they're still writing a reflection in the bulletin, right? Or they're still taking the list of the sick and praying for those people, right? Or they're making phone calls. They can't visit the sick anymore, but they can call, and they're doing that. So that ministry, which is one of service, of love and support for the faithful, is still going on.
And I find it very inspiring that a man, still has that fire burning of service.
Yeah. Are there any myths we missed, or anything we'd want to share for our audience, to the diaconate community, to deacons and wives, other than a great thank you for their service, and maybe an encouragement to continue to grow in faith and grow in service? It is a commitment to ongoing formation. I guess another myth would be, I was ordained, now I'm done. I'm done.
Right. I know everything I need to know. No, that's not the case. We're always growing, we're always learning.
Yeah, I think if there are myths, we have to be accountable to ourselves, so that if we are measuring our diaconate in terms only of tasks accomplished, we're misunderstanding. We're failing to include the deeper wealth of being a deacon, and that's our prayer relationship, our prayer life, our faith life. That whatever we do is not for the greater honor and glory of the deacon, but it's for the greater honor and glory of God and His church and His people. So we deacons need to be accountable and focused on that prayer life.
To that point, I was going to say, maybe a myth or a mindset sometimes is, I'm so busy with my family, with my work, and with the parish, I really don't have time for spiritual direction.
Retreats.
I don't have time for retreats, and I don't have time to come together with the broader diaconate community for ongoing formational prayer. What would you say to that mindset?
It's difficult. I'm a survivor of a works righteousness myself. So it's for some of us it may be hang up the phone, put it in a drawer. Once a week, I commit to a 6-hour window. I'm so brave. There's 6 hours when I won't look at the internet or my phone. It's the best I can do. But when we ourselves surrender to that busyness, we're not going to get to where we need to go. And so I think, what do we say? I say, take small bites at the apple and see how freeing that is. Come camping with me to Glacier National Park. I was just there a couple weeks ago.
Well, how effective can you be if you are spread out so thin, and if you're running here, running there, running here, running there? You're not a good husband. You're not a good father. You're not a good deacon. If you are that,
Is my mantra in my semi-retirement: saying yes to one thing necessarily means I'm saying no to something else.
Yeah. Right.
There's only so many hours in the day.
You recommended a great book. I just mention and share with the audience, and if there are any others that either of you would like to mention, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Yeah.
I thought was just an exceptional book.
Yes, it's very good.
To get us all focused. There was an article in one of our previous newsletters, actually from a deacon in Milwaukee, this notion you're always in the church, right? Yeah. And how he tried to balance his family work with his ministry.
Yeah. That's John Mark Comer, C-O-M-E-R, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, we've got it posted up there, so if you want to
okay.
grab the book or the audio book as you're traveling between places and locations, the audio book becomes a great conversation and a voice inside your head, which is offering some subtle correction and guidance. I encourage our members of our diaconate community and faithful for yourself as well. Somehow we think that all of us in American society sometimes think that if we do more, somehow we'll get it all done, and somehow we'll be more highly favored. I'm not sure that that's exactly true.
It's called Pelagianism.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, though, in this discussion around the myths, common myths that related to deacons, who they are, so that maybe our faithful can help them really recognize that who they are is more important than what they do. What they do is so valued and appreciated. Please let them know that. But it's grounded in that initial yes, powered by the Holy Spirit, elevated by prayer, spiritual direction, and connection with the broader community, both the diaconate community and their faith community. Thank you for being here with us and uncovering the myths, which there's a bit of truth in every myth, but drilling down into those so that we all have better clarity and hopefully better serve the people of God.
Excellent.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
God bless.
For to sit at my right hand or at my left is not for me,